I lay still on the vast bed, my eyes wide open, immersed in the darkness of the bedroom in our house in the suburbs of Charlotte, North Carolina. The clock on the nightstand blinked red. 3:17 a.m. The ticking of the clock felt like it was keeping time with the loneliness tightening around me. The wind hissed softly through the crack in the window, as if reminding me of the emptiness beside me. Brian. My husband, the man who just a few years ago promised me a complete and happy home, had once again used the excuse of working late. This time it was an emergency meeting with an important client. A meeting that lasted nearly until dawn. A familiar explanation I'd heard so many times I could recite every tone he used to cover the truth. I told myself I was probably being overly sensitive. 6 years of marriage and 3 miscarriages had left my mind more fragile than before. The pressure from myself, from Brian's family, from the scrutinizing eyes of my mother-in-law at every holiday. When will we hear good news, Violet? I had grown used to the feeling of both hope and fear each month as I waited for the results of pregnancy tests. Part of me still clung to some faith in Brian, in his promise that he was trying for our future, but tonight the doubt knocked louder than ever. I had tried to soothe myself by counting breaths, listening to soft music, reading a few pages of a book, but none of it helped. The ping of a message startled me. My hand trembled as I reached for the phone, my heart pounded. I hadn't meant to look, but some instinct made my finger swipe across the screen. The message appeared. "I miss your skin against mine already, can't wait until tomorrow when you tell her." I froze. My eyes refused to believe the words on the screen. A cold wave shot down my spine, leaving my whole body stiff like stone. The sender was Megan, the woman from PR who had chatted with me at the company Christmas party, who had draped an arm over my shoulder for a photo, who had asked about my plans for children as if she were a caring sister. It felt as if someone had sucked all the air out of the room. I sat up, the faint glow of the street lamp casting blotchy shadows on the wall through the curtains. Our wedding photo on the nightstand suddenly felt foreign. Brian beamed in his tuxedo, and I, the bride in white, had believed it was the happiest day of my life. 6 years of love, of enduring the pain of losing children together, all shattered by a single message. I scrolled down with shaking hands, skimming through their exchanges. Messages, secret photos, promises to start over together, all stored on the phone I used to text Brian to pick up milk on his way home. Part of me wanted to smash the phone, to scream, to demand answers. But another part, the part hardened by so many disappointments, kept me still. I knew if I lashed out now, I'd have nothing but tears and more lies. I placed a hand on my belly where I had once hoped to carry our tiny child, but now there was only emptiness. Cold. Bitter. The sound of the door unlocking echoed from downstairs. Brian was home. The thud of his shoes on the floor, his heavy footsteps on the stairs. I quickly locked the screen, lay back down and closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. Brian opened the bedroom door softly, a strange cologne mixed with cigarette smoke lingering around him. He paused at the bed, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder. "Are you asleep?" His voice was low, as if afraid to break the silence. I stayed still, pretending to sleep deeply. Tonight I had to stay calm. I needed a plan. If I had endured years of heartbreak, I was strong enough to face this truth. Brian lay down beside me, his breathing even, as if all was peaceful. But to me, each breath only twisted the pain deeper. When the clock struck 4 a.m., I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I rose quietly, stepping out of the room, my legs nearly trembling, but forcing myself to move. I sat at the kitchen table, opened the laptop that had sat there since the afternoon. The desk lamp cast a pale yellow glow on the screen, lighting up my trembling fingers. I logged into Brian's email. The password? His mother's birthday. Something I once thought sweet, now only bitter. I began to trace each clue. The emails appeared, restaurant reservations at places we'd never gone because they were too expensive. Confirmations for luxury hotel bookings in the heart of the city. I opened each one, read every line. No explanation was needed. A photo attached to one hotel confirmation. A room with a balcony overlooking the river. Rose petals scattered on the bed. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal or the care Brian gave her that I'd never received. I kept going, pulling up messages stored in the cloud that Brian hadn't bothered to delete. The chats between him and Megan felt like I'd fallen into a nightmare. 2 months. 2 months they'd been sneaking around behind my back, while I still hoped, still tried to believe our family could be saved. A message stared back at me. When will you tell her? I don't want to keep lying. I just need a little more time. You know how weak Violet was. Weak? I had fought through 3 miscarriages. I had stood by him through nights he came home drunk from work failures. I had endured his mother belittling me because I hadn't given her a grandchild. If that was weak, I wondered how strong he expected me to be. I left the laptop, my heart heavy. Standing, I glanced around the living room. Everything seemed strange now. The wedding photo on the shelf, where Brian had once carefully placed it so visitors would see, now only choked me with sorrow. 6 years together, from young lovers eager to build a future, now just 2 actors in a play nearing its final scene. The next morning, Brian was as usual. He kissed my cheek lightly, asked about my health with such tenderness that if I hadn't known the truth I might have felt warmth. He said he had an important client meeting that might run late. I nodded, hiding everything inside. Part of me wanted to scream, to confront him, but my mind held me back. I needed more time. I needed to be sure I held all the truth before facing him. At noon I started cleaning the small office in the house, the room Brian rarely used, cluttered with papers and bills. While gathering old papers into a box, a folded hotel receipt slipped out. The paper was faded but the writing was clear. The date matched the day Brian said he had an urgent business trip, the day I was in the hospital after my 3rd miscarriage. My heart felt like it was being crushed, so while I lay between the white walls of a hospital, he had been with her in that luxury hotel room. I sank to the floor, the receipt still in my hand, the tears no longer falling. The pain had given way to a terrifying clarity. Every illusion of a faithful husband, of a marriage that could be saved, had vanished in just a few hours. I placed the paper into the drawer, alongside other important documents. My eyes stopped at the wedding ring lying among the stack of papers. Brian had taken it off once while fixing something around the house and forgot to put it back on. Even the symbol of his lifelong vow was that easy for him to forget. I lay awake, thinking about what I would do next. Because at this point I couldn't keep being the woman who silently endured. I needed to plan carefully, for myself and for everything I had sacrificed. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, the white light casting down on my pale face. The dark circles under my eyes betrayed countless sleepless nights. My lips were dry, my shoulders noticeably thinner. But I didn't linger on those signs of exhaustion. My gaze rested on the hand I'd placed gently on my belly. 6 weeks. Exactly 6 weeks since the night that changed my life forever. That night, heavy rain fell, thunder streaked across the North Carolina sky. Brian was on a business trip in Atlanta, or at least, that's what he told me. That day, I had just learned I'd lost the baby again. The faint double lines on the pregnancy test faded over time, once more drowning the hope I had only just begun to feel. I had sat for hours in the kitchen, a bottle of wine opened but untouched, just staring at it as if expecting courage from that dark red liquid. The doorbell rang in the middle of the storm. I didn't think anyone would come by at that hour. When I opened the door, I saw Jason, Brian's younger brother, who over the years had kept just enough distance from me to be polite, enough to avoid upsetting Brian. His hair was soaked, his shirt clung to him, his arms held a briefcase. "I'm sorry, Violet," Jason said, his voice low and breathless from running in the rain. "Brian asked me to bring you some documents he forgot. He said it's urgent." I couldn't move for a moment. A gust of wind made Jason shiver. I stepped aside to let him in. "Let me get you a towel to dry off," I said, my voice hoarse. Jason murmured thanks, his eyes briefly flicking over my face, as if noticing the traces of tears still visible. In the brightly lit kitchen, Jason sat down, his hands wrapped around the hot mug I gave him. The scent of chamomile tea lingered in the quiet space. I sat across from him, feeling the emptiness around me like an invisible wall. "Are you okay?" Jason asked softly, his gaze gentle in a way I had forgotten it could look. I gave a faint smile. "What do you think?" Silence. Only the sound of rain hitting the window frame. I told Jason everything. Not because I was seeking pity, but because at that moment, I needed someone to listen. I told him about the months of longing for a child, the repeated heartbreak, the growing distance from Brian. Jason didn't interrupt. He just sat there, his eyes never leaving mine, listening to every word as if what I said mattered more than anything. The wine bottle was finally opened, 2 glasses clinked softly in the stormy night. The light buzz eased the weight in my chest. When I broke down in tears, Jason said nothing, just placed his hand over mine, and that warmth spread through me, making me unwilling to let go. In that moment I was vulnerable. A gentle touch became an embrace became a kiss, and from there every boundary crumbled. Just one night, a single night, and we swore it would always remain a secret. The next morning Jason left as the sun began to rise, saying nothing more than a quiet apology. And I told myself I would forget. I tried to forget. But then, 2 weeks later, the pregnancy test showed 2 clear lines, darker than I'd ever seen before. I was stunned by the result. I knew for sure this baby could not be Brian's. There had been no intimacy between us for many months. I had considered telling Brian, letting him believe it was a miracle, the thing we'd wished for all these years. But then, discovering the truth about him and Megan shattered every plan I had. How could I let my child grow up in a family built on lies and deceit? How could I bind this baby to a web of vows that no longer meant anything? Standing before the mirror, I looked at myself, and for the first time in years I truly saw the woman I had become. Stronger than I thought, more clear-headed than I had hoped, and I knew I had to do what was right. Not just for me, but for the tiny life growing inside me every day. But what was right? I didn't know yet. I only knew that I wouldn't let Brian or anyone else decide the fate of me and my child ever again. After a sleepless night beside the glow of the laptop screen, I knew I needed clarity before facing Brian or Megan. The next morning, when Brian left the house with the usual excuse of might be late meeting with the regional director, I just nodded without asking anything. In truth, I knew he wouldn't be going to the office. I had quietly installed a tracker on his phone earlier. I called Mr. Robert, the longtime attorney of Brian's family. He had been the one to personally oversee the signing of our prenuptial agreement 6 years ago. "Violet, it's been a while since I've heard from you. Is something wrong?" His voice was calm, seasoned, but kind. "I need to see you right away. It's about the prenup between Brian and me. I can't discuss it over the phone," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "All right, I'll arrange it. Can you meet me at my office in an hour?" Mr. Roberts' office was in an old building in downtown Charlotte, its dark wood walls and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves giving the place an unusual sense of solemnity. He invited me to sit, his eyes showing a trace of concern at the sight of my face. "Violet, what's happened?" I looked him straight in the eye. "Tell me, does the clause about property division if Brian breaches the marriage commitment still stand?" He nodded firmly. "It's fully intact. If Brian engages in infidelity, he forfeits all rights to shared assets, including his stake in the family company, real estate, and any joint investments. Those assets would be yours." I stayed silent, then took a deep breath. "One more thing. I need you to clarify something. Is there anything in the contract regarding me if, by unforeseen circumstances, I become pregnant by someone else?" Mr. Robert frowned slightly, leaning back a bit. "I remember that agreement well, Violet. It focused on assets and financial obligations in the event of betrayal, specifically infidelity, by either party leading to loss of property rights. There's nothing in it that punishes or restricts a wife for becoming pregnant by someone else, unless there's evidence she intentionally schemed to cause financial harm to the husband or the family's honor. What you're asking isn't covered by that agreement." I exhaled, feeling a bit more at ease. "I'm asking because I want everything to be clear before anything I do next is used against me." Mr. Robert studied me for a few seconds, then nodded, his voice softening. "Violet, I don't know exactly what you're facing, but you're smart and careful. If you need anything more or if you want me to represent you, just call. Thank you, Robert. I'll be in touch soon. Stepping out of the lawyer's office, I paused on the sidewalk, watching the busy stream of cars go by. In my mind, everything was becoming clearer. Brian might think he was in control, might believe that his promises and secret meetings had left no trace. But he had no idea that the very contract his parents forced us to sign before the wedding was now my shield. And more than anything, I knew for sure the fact that I was pregnant, even though the baby wasn't Brian's, did not violate any clause of that contract. I hadn't broken any financial obligation, caused no loss of assets, or harmed the family's honor in the sense defined by the agreement. I was just a woman who had been hurt, trying to protect herself and the child she carried. I walked toward the car waiting for me, feeling a bit lighter, but knowing the real battle had only just begun. It was time for me to meet Megan, and show her that not everyone was as easy to bring down as they thought. I arranged to meet Megan on Saturday morning at a coffee shop on the corner of Franklin Street. A place busy enough that no one would notice, but quiet enough that our words wouldn't get lost in the noise. I arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a table in the corner, my back to the wall, where I could observe the entire cafe and the large glass door facing the street. The herbal tea in front of me was still hot when Megan walked in. She wasn't wearing her usual heavy makeup, and her brown hair, normally curled, hung loose and natural. Megan's eyes scanned the room, then settled on me. There was a brief hesitation, then she walked over quickly and sat across from me. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me," Megan began, her voice softer than I expected. I kept my expression calm. I thought we should speak face to face for once, rather than through secret messages. Megan lowered her head, her hands clasped together, fingers twisting slightly. I didn't mean for things to turn out this way. But I can't back down anymore. I love Brian, and he loves me too. He told me your marriage has been dead for a long time. I took a deep breath, my eyes steady on hers. "And what do you want from me, Megan? I just hope you understand I'm not a thief. I want Brian to be happy, and I believe you deserve someone who truly loves you too." She looked up, her eyes glistening. I smiled faintly. "So you're hoping I'll step aside so you two can be together more easily?" She hesitated, then nodded slightly. I placed my hand on my bag, pulling out a thin folder, setting it on the table between us. "Megan, are you aware of the prenuptial agreement Brian and I signed?" Her eyes flickered with confusion. I'm not really sure. Brian never mentioned it." "Then let me make it clear," I began, my voice steady as if each word was etched into the wooden table. "That contract contains a clause Brian never worried about because he thought it would never come into play. Unfortunately for him, that time has come. The clause states, if Brian commits adultery, he forfeits all rights to our shared assets, his stake in the family company, our shared properties, investment accounts, they all become mine." Megan's face went pale. "Brian can't." "He can, and he did sign it," I cut in, my gaze fixed on her face as it changed. "Do you know why Brian's parents insisted on that clause? Because the family's honor means more than anything to them, and if this gets exposed, I think you're smart enough to understand the consequences won't stop at just the assets." She fell silent, her eyes drifting somewhere far away. I could see her lips trembling, though she tried to keep composed. "Megan, you say you love Brian. If that's true, this is your only chance to prove it. Walk away, leave quietly, without causing more harm, without leaving a stain on either of you." "Are you trying to force me?" Megan's voice faltered. "I'm not forcing you. I'm giving you a choice." I emphasized each word, looking directly into her eyes. 1. You disappear from Brian's life today, transfer offices, cut all contact. 2. I take every piece of evidence to court, and believe me, Megan, I've already gathered everything I need. She lowered her head, her hands gripping each other until her knuckles turned white. I'll transfer. I'll leave. That's the right decision." As I stood, Megan called softly, "Violet? I'm sorry." I paused, my gaze softening briefly. "Save that apology for Brian. Because in the end, he's the one who truly owes me answers." I walked out of the cafe, the morning chill hitting my face. leaving me strangely clear-headed. There was no sense of triumph in me, only a steady, quiet resolve. The first battle was won, but I knew the war ahead would be long. And now, I was ready to face it. Brian came home on a weekday evening as the Charlotte sky drizzled with the kind of rain that marks early autumn. The car's headlights lit up the window for a moment, then the living room settled back into warm shadows. I sat on the sofa, a magazine in my hands, though I couldn't focus on a single word, knowing tonight would be different. He walked in, his coat dotted with rain. Brian looked tired, but his eyes held a kind of emotion I hadn't seen in so long. Not guilt, not concealment, but nervousness? "Violet," he began, sitting beside me, his voice softer than usual, "I have something to tell you." I set the magazine down on the table gently. "I'm listening." Brian took a deep breath, then spoke quickly as if afraid he'd lose the courage. "I've just been offered a new position, regional director in London, working directly with the global strategy team. It's an opportunity I never even dreamed of." I kept my eyes on him. "Then why do you look so anxious telling me?" "Because it's come at a complicated time," Brian admitted, his gaze shifting away. "I know there's been so much tension between us, but I thought, if we left here, started fresh somewhere new, maybe things would get better. I want to make it up to you, Violet, I really do." I listened to every word, feeling nothing but a rising bitterness inside. Make it up to me? After everything he had done, after all those lonely nights I endured, after every look of pity or blame I received from his mother, his family, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "How long do you have to give them an answer?" I asked, my voice still calm. "By the end of this week, they want us to move within 3 weeks. 3 weeks, so fast it was suffocating." Brian took my hand. "I know this is sudden, but please believe me. I'll do everything to make you happy again. I've thought about it so much. I was wrong. I let work, the pressure, pull me away from you. London will be our chance to find ourselves again." I gently pulled my hand from his. "I need time to think." He agreed softly, his eyes lighting with hope. "I understand. But think about our future, Violet. I promise, no more secrets, no more mistakes." When Brian went upstairs to pack for his short business trip to New York the next day, I stayed downstairs. The room filled only with the ticking of the clock and the soft patter of rain on the porch roof. I knew I would agree, but not because I believed his promises, not because I hoped for a marriage that could still be saved. I agreed because London would give me the chance to get Brian's signature on every document I needed. A new country, a new environment, where he wouldn't have his familiar network to hide behind or escape into. And more than anything, my child would have a future that was secure, legitimate, and safe. 2 days later, when Brian returned from New York, I greeted him with a gentle smile. "I've thought it through. If this is truly what you want, I'll go with you." Brian squeezed my hand tightly, his eyes glistening with relief. "Thank you, Violet. I won't let you down again, I promise." Promise? How many times had he promised? But this time I wasn't the woman sitting and waiting, hoping for those words to mean something. This time, I was the one in control. And Brian, he had no idea that every signature he'd give in the coming weeks would be exactly what I needed to build the shield for me and my child. The night before he signed the contract with the new company, Brian sat with me in the living room, the soft yellow light casting warmth over the features I had once loved so deeply. He held my hand, pressing it to his cheek. "I know I've hurt you so much, but please give me a chance. Let me make it up to you, can you?" I looked at him, my smile still gentle. "I hope you can, Brian. For me, and for the baby." He didn't realize how I had emphasized the baby with a very specific meaning. Brian just looked at me, eyes bright with hope, not knowing that everything had already changed. The flight to London lasted nearly 9 hours, and the whole time Brian held my hand as if he never wanted to let go. His eyes shone with a naive belief that I had forgiven him, that I was going with him because I still loved him, still hoped. I simply smiled softly to reassure him. But in truth, my mind held only one plan: to secure my child's future, and to ensure Brian couldn't destroy anything more. Before leaving Charlotte, I met with Jason. We sat at a small cafe by the river, where no one knew who we were, no one cared about our conversation. I can't let Brian suspect a thing, Jason, I said firmly. We need time. I need you to stay silent. After the baby is born, after all the financial and legal documents are in place, I'll tell Brian the truth. Jason looked at me for a long moment, his eyes filled with worry and sorrow. Violet, I'll do anything you need. But are you sure you can endure this for that long? I'm not enduring, I replied. I'm preparing. Every day I'm beside Brian. Every signature he gives on the documents I ask for is one step closer to freedom. Jason gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. For you and for the baby. London welcomed us with a chilly, misty morning. Brian rented a townhouse in Kensington, expensive, luxurious, and perfect for the happy family image he was trying to create. He became the model husband in dramatic fashion, taking me for walks every morning, decorating the nursery himself, asking about my health with great care every day. To everyone else, we looked like the perfect couple preparing to welcome a child in love and renewal. What Brian didn't know was that I had quietly asked a lawyer here to help set up co-ownership documents for the assets, bank accounts, and properties he purchased in England. Brian didn't hesitate to sign. I just want you to see I'm changing, Brian once said as he signed the document transferring part of an investment account. I want you to trust me again. I know, and I appreciate that. But trust was something that had died long ago. Life in London passed almost perfectly on the surface. I attended prenatal yoga classes, walked around Hyde Park, adapted to the rhythm of life here. Brian was busy with his new job, with client dinners, late meetings, and then everything began repeating, just as I had predicted. One evening when Brian said he had to work late, I sat alone in the living room, watching the streetlights blur through the rain. My phone showed his location wasn't at the office, but at a luxury hotel downtown. My heart didn't ache like it had that first time. There was only a cold feeling, as if part of me was already too familiar with this script. A week later, when Brian was on a business trip in Manchester, I found a small gift box left on his desk, not yet hidden. A bottle of women's perfume, with a handwritten card. For our first night together. Signed by Claire, the new colleague at the London office he had proudly introduced at a company party. I closed my eyes, my heart as quiet as a still lake. I scanned the card, photographed the gift box, and stored them along with all the documents I had quietly gathered over the past few months. Emails, fake meeting schedules, credit card statements. Each piece I needed so that when the time came, the full picture of the truth would be complete. The evening Brian returned from Manchester, he still wore his carrying mask. I brought you some chocolate from the airport. I know you've been craving sweets. I accepted it, smiling. Thank you. I've prepared some paperwork for the baby's account, the assets. Could you look over it for me? Of course, he said, without suspicion. And with another signature, I took another step closer to freedom. In the final months of my pregnancy in London, I had completed nearly everything I needed for my plan. Every asset Brian purchased here, from the townhouse we lived in to the investment accounts and insurance, had my name as co-owner. Each of Brian's signatures was a step closer to the freedom I had quietly pursued for months. I continued to monitor Brian, as silent as a shadow. The tracker app on his phone, the emails I accessed secretly using our old shared account, the credit card statements he never thought I'd pay attention to, every new piece of evidence of Brian's affair with Claire, the colleague he still spoke of proudly at company dinners, fell into my hands. Photos of Brian and Claire having dinner at a 5-star restaurant. Emails arranging hotel meetings on weekends with suggestive subject lines. Statements showing charges for gifts for Claire. I saved it all to an encrypted hard drive with a backup in the cloud, protected by a password only I knew. But I wasn't done yet. A key part of my plan, the insurance I'd told myself I had to have, was Megan's confession. Before leaving Charlotte, Megan had signed a document confirming the entire affair between her and Brian. At the time, I'd had a lawyer witness it under the pretext of settling any misunderstandings in case of future asset disputes. Megan had been too frightened to refuse. That paper came with me to London, kept safe in our home safe. That night, Brian came home later than usual. A strange perfume lingered around him as he bent down to kiss my forehead. I looked at him, smiled gently, just as I always did. Emergency meeting, he explained, taking off his coat. I'm sorry I'm late. It's all right, I replied, my eyes never leaving his face. That night, as he slept soundly, I opened my laptop and finalized the divorce file I had prepared over so many months. Evidence of Brian's affair with Claire, Megan's written confession, the property documents in my name. Everything was carefully organized, ready to be handed to the lawyer at any moment. I printed 2 copies of the file, one I kept in the safe, the other I sent securely to the lawyer in London. If anything happened, that file would go straight to the court and the media. 3 days later, Brian announced he'd have to stay overnight in Birmingham for work. I nodded, wished him a smooth trip, and quietly opened the tracking app. Brian's destination wasn't Birmingham, but a luxury hotel right in the center of London. I called the lawyer. I'm ready, let's start the proceedings. Are you sure, Violet? His voice asked again, though I knew he already sensed the answer. I'm sure. That night, London was wrapped in the first snowfall of the season. White flakes blowing sideways in the cold wind, covering rooftops, sidewalks, and trembling window panes with a thin layer. I sat in the living room, the soft yellow light from the floor lamp shining down on the file on the table before me. Everything was ready. I was just waiting for Brian to play out his familiar act one last time. Brian's footsteps echoed on the stairs as he came down, putting on his coat, adjusting his tie in the mirror by the foyer. Seeing me sitting there, he looked startled but quickly regained his confident demeanor. I thought you were asleep, why are you still up? He asked, trying to sound casual. Where are you going in the middle of a snowy night? I asked, my eyes steady on him. A client needs to discuss something urgently. A very important project, he said, avoiding my gaze, his hand gripping the car keys tightly. I stood, walked slowly to the table and placed the file in his hand. Then take this with you, since you're headed out anyway. Brian frowned, opened the file. His eyes darted across each page. Evidence of the affair with Claire, Megan's confession, the property transfer documents. His hands trembled, his face drained of color. Violet, don't do this, I'm begging you. I kept my eyes on him, my tone steady and clear. I'm not doing this. You did. I'm just protecting myself and the baby. Brian's lips moved but no words came out. His hands fell limp, the file dropping onto the table, a few papers sliding out, stark white against the snowy glow coming through the window. I love you, it was just a mistake, please don't destroy everything. Brian's voice sounded like a lost whisper in the night. I shook my head gently. Brian, everything was lost the day you chose betrayal. I'm just taking back control of my life. I paused for a beat, then looked straight at him, for the first time with no fear at all. And there's something you need to know. The child I'm carrying isn't yours. It's Jason's. Ren stepped back as if I'd slapped him. What? You're lying. I don't need to lie anymore, I replied, my eyes never leaving his. I had planned to let you believe it was yours, but after everything you've done, I don't need to keep any more secrets. I did all this not to get revenge. I did it to protect my child. To protect myself. Brian collapsed onto the chair, his hands covering his head, his body trembling in the room that once felt warm, but now was filled with emptiness. Outside, a car stopped. Jason stepped in, his eyes briefly on Brian before settling on me, filled with worry. Are you all right? Jason asked softly, as if afraid to break the heavy silence. I breathed in deeply, my hand resting lightly on my belly, feeling the strong heartbeat of the little life inside me. I'm all right. It's time for us to close this chapter. Jason came over and stood beside me. Brian looked at us, his eyes vacant, then lowered his head without saying another word. 2 weeks later, on a chilly morning, I gave birth to a daughter in a small hospital on the outskirts of London. Jason stayed by my side the entire time, his hand gripping mine, his eyes following my every move, every breath. When our baby's first cries filled the air, I felt my own tears fall. Not tears of pain or resentment, but tears of release, of the pure happiness I had longed for. Jason held both of us close, whispering, "It's over now. You did it, Violet." My gaze shifted between my daughter and Jason, my heart full of peace. No more anger, no more burden, only me, a woman free, in control of her own life, and a child I would protect with everything I had. Brian left London not long after, taking with him the ruins he had created. And I began a new chapter. A chapter of strength, of freedom, and of true love. The love for my child, and for myself. Looking back now, I feel no bitterness or hatred. All the pain, betrayal, and lonely nights taught me how to rise, to be stronger, and to protect myself and my little girl. I understand now that revenge doesn't bring peace. Only the right choices and the courage to face the truth gave me real freedom. Today, I'm proud to have taken control of my life, to have built a new home with my own hands and my own strength. What do you think of Violet's story and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful, emotional, real-life family stories.